This video is brought to you by the DSU Writing Center. Today we'll be talking about the Chicago Manual of Style 17th edition, particularly focusing on the notes bibliography method. Some of the things that we'll be going over in this video is identifying some of the main components of notes bibliography method, how to insert footnotes along with superscripts, and also how to create a bibliography. Some main components of this method of formatting includes inserting footnotes instead of in-text citations, as well as a bibliography page that matches the footnotes. So for footnotes, you would have superscript numbers as well as a note at the end of the page that aligns with the number that you included in your text. A bibliography page includes a list of sources that you've cited and consulted in your paper, and the entries should be a more elaborate version of your footnotes, and it must be listed in alphabetical order. Now, although your whole paper up to the bibliography has been double-spaced, you do not need to double-space your citations. However, you do need to include hanging indents for each of them. We will now be looking at how to insert footnotes as well as a bibliography page. I'm currently using Office 365 for PCs, and I have a document here that is already formatted in Chicago style. You'll notice the title, my credentials, and then I also have the text ready. Usually for APA and MLA format, you would include parenthetical citations when creating your in-text citations. Now for Chicago style, you would just find wherever you've cited a source within your paper. Instead of the parenthetical citations, I would include a footnote. In order to insert your footnote, you would click your cursor right where your first in-text citation is, and it should fall right after the period, definitely not inside but after the complete sentence. And then you would go to references, and then I can click insert footnote. And notice how there is a small superscript number up here, which is number 1, and when you scroll down to the bottom of the same page, you'd see that formatted for you already. Now the only thing you change is in the footnote you wouldn't want your number to be a superscript as well. So I'm going to delete that, and then I'm going to type my number 1 manually. So now I have a regular sized number. And now I'm ready to type my footnote. So the footnote will be very similar to a bibliography entry, but there are certain modifications. Now the first source that I'm going to be citing in my footnote is of the Chicago Manual of Style website. And for this particular article from the website that I'm citing, it does not have a specific author's name. So instead of the author's name, I would start with the title of the article itself. So my title of the article will be in quotations, and it is Chicago Style Citation Quick Guide. And that's going to be followed by a comma, and I'm going to close the quotations, and then I'm going to type the title of the website, which is the Chicago Manual of Style, and that is italicized just because that is the name of the larger work that I'm citing from. And then I'd put a comma, and I want to remove my italics, and usually I would have to put the date of publication or the date updated or modified. In this situation, there is no date updated, published, or modified, so I'm going to be putting the date I have accessed it. So I'll type accessed on November 28. And make sure this is how you format your date. So no comma after the month, but you will put one before the year. And then I'm ready to put my link in, so the URL, and simply you could just copy it and paste it. And you want to make sure that it is not hyperlinked, so I'm going to right click and remove the hyperlink. And I'm just going to also double check the font and font size. So notice how it's 11. You want to make sure it's size 12-point font. And I would end it off with a period, and that's it. That's how you do a footnote. So we've done the first footnote. I'm going to be showing you another example of how to do a footnote with an actual author's name. So we will scroll down, and I will be showing you how to do the next footnote. Now the next footnote is going to go right here because this is where I've cited the work, and it will be the same kind of format in terms of inserting the footnotes. So I have my cursor right after the quotation and punctuation at the very end of the sentence, and then I'll click on references and then insert footnote again, and see how the number counts down from 1 to 2. And again, like I said before, you want to manually type the number so that it's not a superscript in the footnote. And now I'm going to type the author's name to create my footnote, because for this particular source that I've used, I do have an author's name. So since I have a single author, I do not have to put the last name first. So I'm going to just type the full name as is. So the first name is Helen, and last name is Castor, and then I'm going to put a comma. And now, since this is the title of a book, I need to italicize and put the title, which is Blood and Roses, One Family's Struggle and Triumph during the tumultuous Wars of the Roses. It's a long name. Alright, and now I want to put the publishing information. So this will be actually slightly different from the first one we did. This would be the correct way to format your footnote when you have all the information you need. For example, we have the author's name, we have the title of the book or work, and then we have all the publishing information. And the publishing information actually goes in parentheses. So I'm going to open my parentheses and type the location of which it was published. So that's New York, and then I'll put a colon to type the publishing company. So that's HarperCollins Publishers. And then I'm going to put a comma and type the year that it was published. Okay. And then I'm going to close my parentheses. And the last thing that I would add is the page number. And this is all that's available to me. And I'm going to put a period. And that's how you would create your footnote for a text that has all the information you need. And remember, again, you want to make sure your font is correct and the font size is correct. All right. Okay, so Now, one last footnote I want to show you is going to be an example of a footnote that you would create if you are using the same source consecutively, so one after the other. Now, my next footnote is going to be right here. That's where I've cited the source, and it's going to still be this book here by Helen Castor. So I'm actually going to now insert my next footnote, and I just have to go to references and insert footnote like that. And then I'm going to delete it and type it manually like I've been doing. And just make sure there's this one space in between each footnote. That way it doesn't get too clustered in there. Okay, so like I said, this is the same source, and I know you would be thinking it would be super repetitive to type out the whole footnote. So if you are using the same source right after the other, you would simply just type I bid. And then the only other new information for the source that I'm adding is actually the page number. And the page is actually 148. And then I put a period. And notice how the font again is small. So I changed that. All right. So that's how you would do footnotes, and you've seen many variations. Now, the only thing I have not gone over is how to create a footnote for the same source if you're using after using multiple sources, and that's actually very similar and easy. You don't have to type out the whole footnote, but you also do not put I bid. You would just type maybe the author's last name and the page number, or like specific information that will help the reader understand or identify which source you're using. And that's pretty much it for footnotes. Now, the next thing you want to do is create your bibliography. And just like the works cited page and reference page, the bibliography also needs to be on its own separate page, which usually falls at the very last page of your paper. So I am going to center my cursor and type the title, which is Bibliography, and then I can press enter. And don't worry, it's actually a good thing that the spacing is single space, because for Chicago style, specifically the bibliography, your sources or citations should not be double spaced. So you would want your cursor to be flush to the left before you start typing your citation. So I've already created my bibliography citations. I just wanted to point out to you some of the differences between the footnote versus the bibliography citation. So notice how it's not double spaced like I mentioned before. There's just one space in between to make sure it's not bunched together, but there is still the hanging indents. It's alphabetized, and now the only big difference, if you look at the footnote over here of the text versus the bibliography citation, is the last name is flipped. And then also the publication is not in parentheses. And I also don't have the page number because it is the bibliography and I'm pretty much citing the entire source, whereas in the footnote I want to make sure I reference the page to which I am referring to. And now if you look at the first footnote we had done was with minimal information, where we were missing the author's name as well as all the publication information, and it is literally the same as the footnote, because now the only difference again between the footnote versus the bibliography is the way that the publication information is formatted. All right, so that's pretty much it. This is how you would format, cite, and create a bibliography page for the Chicago Manual of Style, specifically the Notes bibliography method. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to visit the Writing Center or visit our website for some useful resources. Thank you.